Hi there and welcome once again to howtodrawandpaint.com. My name is Bob Davis and today we're going to do a nice acrylic painting based on this photograph I took not so long back in a place called Wharf Bay in Anglesey, which is an island off the North Wales coast. Now we're going to paint the picture on a piece of watercolor mount board. In other words, this is the card that you cut out an aperture and mount watercolor paintings on. But if you've seen the accompanying video about the introduction to acrylic paints, you'll find out that there's any number of surfaces you can use. Now, as you can see from the photograph, we've got quite a nice composition here. It wasn't the brightest of days, but we can do something with that when we actually come to do the painting by adding some sunlight, and I'll show you how to do that. You can see the tide's gone out, so there's the remnants of the water which has left a cluster of boats high and dry. Right, I'm going to put some acrylic paint front and back on this card to prime it, and if you're not sure what that involves, again just have a look at the introduction to acrylics video. It'll explain everything. I'm going to put a touch of yellow ochre in the priming colour so it's not dead white. It helps to cover any white areas so that when you come to put your main acrylic paints on, if you miss a little fleck of the painting surface, then you haven't got a harsh white little spot jumping out at you. There's a little bit of yellow ochre will shine through the colours to some extent and give a nice unity. Right, now here's the palette I'm going to use. Again, I've shown you how to make this palette in the previous video. You can see it might look a little bit artistic that all these colours have got sort of somehow run together. That's simply because I had a bit of cling film on to keep it moist, and when I took it off I managed to drag it. So these things happen. So what you see is what you get here. What we've got is permanent rose, some white, ultramarine blue, some yellow ochre, some burnt umber and a bit more white, because you find you use white much more than the other colours. I've also got here, I'll hold it up if you can see the sheen, a little bit of acrylic gel retarder, and what that does is to stop the acrylic paint drying as quickly as it does. But sometimes when you want to blend colours a little bit, it can be a bit of a nuisance. I'm using some oil paint brushes with hog's hair bristles on them. I've got a paint mixing tray here which you'd normally use for decorating, and I've got a drop of water in here. When you're painting with acrylics, because it dries so quickly, it'll also dry on your brushes if you leave them out of the water. Now then, I've mixed some ultramarine blue, very thin, added quite a lot of water, so we've almost got a watercolour paint consistency. And I'm going to draw that in with the paint so it's easy to see when I come to paint over it. What I'll also do is add the lights and the darks, so in effect I'm making a tonal sketch on the painting surface before I start painting properly. You can see this doesn't have to be at all detailed. Just a hint of where some of the clouds are going to be. To paint this boat in the foreground is quite straightforward. If you're not sure about painting boats, all you're doing is painting a D sideways on. Next part of the boat you're painting another D, just a little bit bigger, and then finally we paint a D the other way around, which is the cabin area. Right, we've got the tonal values painted in. I've made a couple of additions and changes, a couple of distant boats here and there, which I may move around depending on how the picture develops. And the boat here, the main focal point, I've moved it from pointing out of the picture to putting the D on this side so that this boat points more back into the picture.